أنا دكتورة كاترين من بريطانيا بس أسكن في الأردن وبحكي عربي كمان. But I will give the rest of the talk in English. Forgive me. So
أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا فيكم. So I will share my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I please just check that you can just see one blank screen at the moment? Is that correct?
What do you mean?
Can you see one black screen?
Yes, we see black screen now.
Wonderful. Okay. So now you should be able to see a plate of spaghetti.
Yeah.
And you may be thinking, why am I showing you a plate of spaghetti when we're talking about communication? But I want today to show you that actually communication is between at least two people, if not more. We have different perspectives. We've got the doctors, we've got the patients, we've got the relatives. They may have different backgrounds. They may have different priorities, different thoughts, different feelings. And communication can be quite messy and unpredictable. It can be a bit intertangled between the doctor, the patient, the relatives, the health system that we are working in. And so I want to say today and talk about complexity and that complicatedness in the medical interview. We sometimes think that it is easier to teach something that is straight and simple and easy. So really, we want our medical consultations to look like this. We want them to be simple and easy. But I'm sorry, that is often not the case. We sometimes use frameworks or models, like Dr. Julie was saying, the Calgary-Cambridge framework is an excellent framework to teach both the process, so how we do something, as well as the content, what we're actually doing in the medical encounter. But sometimes this can give our learners, whether that's students or doctors that we are teaching, it can give them the idea that if we do something, for example, signposting in the medical interview, that's telling our patient where we will go, what we will do next, then that will give us good structure. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes the patient at the end of the consultation ends up telling us what was the most important problem that they had, and the structure doesn't go as we planned. But the good news is that complexity theory is a basis that we can use with these frameworks to help teach our students or our learners how to cope and how to manage that complexity. So the plan for this short time of me talking with you is I'm going to look a little bit at the challenges. We're going to explain a little bit about complexity theory, hopefully how to apply that in our teaching with our own consultations with our learners, and also hopefully leave you with a positive attitude towards the complexity in medical interviews. So as Dr. Salam has so kindly introduced me, I'm Dr. Katherine Miles. I'm a British doctor, and I trained at Cambridge University, and actually I was honoured to have Dr. Jonathan Silverman and Dr. Julie Draper both teach me the Calgary Cambridge guide and how to communicate with patients. So it's a real privilege to be one of their students. And then I moved to Yemen, and I was helping with a project to introduce communication skills to Aden University, Faculty of Medicine. And that's where I had the honor of meeting Dr. Abdul Salam. And then I moved and now live in Jordan. And I'm working at the Hashemite University, where 9 years ago, I introduced a communication skills curriculum to the Faculty of Medicine. And we now have a team of trainers. And one of the things that Dr. Bassem and Dr. Abdul Salam asked if I could just talk about a little bit this evening is about how we are teaching during COVID-19. And I know all of us are facing many challenges in how we work as doctors and how we teach our medical students or other faculty students. I know we have people from different professions here, from nursing, from physiotherapy, from dentistry, and we want to be able to teach our students well. So what we are using at the Hashemite University is Microsoft Teams, and we are able to invite students into meetings in small groups, and then we can put them into channels that, similar to Zoom, is like breakout rooms, so that they can have opportunity to practice some of these skills remotely. And we know that that is not ideal. But we can utilize having somebody being a simulated patient and somebody role-playing as the doctor or the other health professional, and others being able to watch those interactions, as you would have if you were doing experiential learning in real life. So it's not ideal, and we are trying to learn how to use technology. Again, this is one opportunity to try and embrace complexity. None of us were expecting COVID-19, and seeing how can we react to this situation in a way that benefits learning for our students. So our team of trainers, headed by Dr. Ayman al-Sharia, is involved in helping other universities across Jordan in developing their communication skills curriculum. So we have in Jordan University in Amman, at Belqa University in Salt, we have at Just in Irid, and the Hashemite University in Zarqa. But yet we have some other universities that we still need to introduce communication skills training. Now, you have been listening for quite a long time on this call, so I would like to try something a bit interactive. So if you have a mobile phone with you, or if you are on a laptop or on your phone, that you can pull up a Google or Firefox browser, please go to menti.com. So if you type menti.com, it will give you a place to put in a number. And if you put in 193493 143493, then there's just two short questions. The first is to answer write down 1, 2, or 3 words that you think of when you hear the word complex or complexity. So if you can just type in 1, 2, or 3 words, and then the next slide I will bring up in 1 minute, you have to move the dot along as to how much you agree or disagree with the statements. So there's just 3 statements. So I'll just stop sharing my screen, but the number is 143493. So I will just stop my screen. I'll type it in here, 143493, and you should also be able to see another question as well. So I'll just give you a minute to fill in that. So if you've filled in the first question about writing some words, please click submit and go on to the next page if possible, and then move the slider along as to how much you agree or disagree.
How much we code, Julie, Kate?
Yes.
Code.
The code again,
code?
143493. I have also put it in the chat for the Zoom call. 143493. So I'll just give you a minute to finish. That. Okay. I hope people are able to find it. So again, if you just slide the dots along as to how much you agree or disagree.
I think communication encounters are complex. I currently learn to manage complexity in communication skill. Yeah. I use framework mode. Yes.
So somebody said they didn't understand what was requested. Just to repeat, if you go to menti.com, you type in 143493, and then if you can just write 3 words, 1, 2, or 3 words you think of with complexity or complex. What does complex mean to you? And then the other one, you just move the bar along as the dot along as to whether you agree or disagree with the 3 statements that are written there. So I will share, it's okay if not everybody's able to do it, but I would share the results. Let me just, 1 minute, do this. Okay. So first of all, if we take a look, you should be able to see my screen. The words that are most common come out largest. So people think that complex means difficult or hard or a challenge, horrible, universe, entertainment, sending a message, different things, but mostly difficult. And if we look to see that we've got here on average, people use a framework or a model such as the Calgary-Cambridge framework. It's got 3.2, so about in the middle, but slightly more do use a framework than not. And then people are in between as to whether they agree or disagree that communication encounters are complex. And people said 2.6% of people, or 2.6 out of 5 is where people place themselves as to how to manage, they teach how to manage complexity in communication training. So this is just a little exercise to get you thinking as to, do you use a framework? Do you think communication encounters are complex? And do you actually teach this or learn this currently? Okay, so I'll go back to the main presentation now. Let me go back here. Okay. Okay, so I hope that was interesting for you to see one of the ways you can use student engagement during teaching exercises. So let's move on and think about some of the challenges when using a framework or a model. Well, one of the things that Dr. Julie's already said is that really these are skills, it's an art in terms of using communication. And unfortunately, sometimes students can think that, oh, if I do this and then this and then this, everything will work out smoothly. But we want to teach students that communication is an art. It's something that we can learn, but we want to be able to not just learn set objectives that maybe teachers have decided beforehand. Another challenge of using a framework can be play acting, role plays. So sometimes students can be very cynical. They can think this is not like real life when they're having to try and act a role. And we want to try and make role plays more like real life. Also, student learning is often driven by assessments, and sometimes students end up trying to perform rather than communicate when they're doing OSCE examinations, for example, because they want to tick all the right boxes, and that can be a big challenge. And then lastly, it can be a challenge to transfer skills into real life, that actually, as we learn in the simulated environment, students also need to know how to use that in real life. So am I saying that that frameworks or models are not helpful? Not at all. I think frameworks are very helpful as tools, but we need to teach learners how to use those tools, how to be skilled communicators, rather than just having the skills and not necessarily knowing how to use them or when to use them. So that is where complexity theory is a helpful lens. It's a way of looking at communication training. So it's trying to bring into focus some aspects that maybe we wouldn't think of otherwise. So complexity theory suggests that there are systems, multiple systems operating in different contexts. And there are social factors. So those are things like our intentions, our thoughts, our meanings that we give to things, and also our relationships. And then material factors, such as objects, people, technology. And we can think that these interact in a linear way. But complexity theory suggests that there are many different non-linear social material interactions in a system. And this affects something like learning. So there's many different interactions occurring, and this can lead to uncertainty, and there can be unpredictability. There can be new possibilities, but all of these can be used to bring out learning. So 4 main attributes or features of complexity theory that I think we can use in our teaching, in our training, in our own practice, I'm going to talk about now. So there's emergence, attunement, experimentation, and disturbance. So in real life, doctors and patients are within a health system. But there's many other things going on. There's other health professionals. And I'm so glad that our colleague is going to talk to us on Monday about interprofessional communication. There are other patients, there are relatives, there is policies from the health centre, from the hospital, from the National Health Ministry. And all of this can affect how we interact with our patients. So using these 4 attributes can help us. Firstly, if we look at emergence, that means allowing something new to spring up, like new growth. And we want to allow there to be different possibilities of learning during teaching for medical communication. We want there to be interactions between students and simulated patients in role play, where maybe we have a certain objective we want the student to learn, but actually we let something else happen because the student asks about it, or maybe something new happens in the way the simulated patient acts. So we want to allow things to emerge. We want to have flexible objectives during a session. Maybe include diversity of actors. So not always using the same type of role play scenarios, writing them a little bit differently. Having different additions into a scenario. Maybe thinking about having a consultation with a patient, and then the patient actually starts to get more short of breath as they start talking, and trying to teach our learners how to deal with changes within that consultation. So not only to communicate with the patient, but to see what new things are changing. We also want to encourage picking up cues, awareness within the consultation. And this we can call attunement. And I know that we do teach our learners in communication how to pick up non-verbal and verbal cues. But we also want them to notice the environment, maybe to notice a relative and how they are angry or frowning or not quite with you, with the patient. So we want to encourage students to be able to pick up these cues. But maybe again, when writing role play scenarios, think about changes within the environment, something that the students need to pick up. Maybe there's an interruption. And also encouraging the other students to watch what is going on and pick up those cues that are happening. Thirdly, we also want to allow experimentation, trying new things. Now, I know we often can teach students through experiential learning, and that's as they experience, they are learning, they're trying out new things. But we really want to give them that opportunity to experiment as well. So it's allowing them to have feedback and trying again in a different way to respond to those interactions that are happening. So actually pausing, maybe even mid-scenario, a simulation, and saying, oh, let's just stop. Can we pause there? Can you reflect on what's going on? Can we rewind and try again? Can we try something new? What could you do? And asking the student, what could you do now? What would you like to try? Maybe asking the others, if you have other learners watching, what could the learner do now? What could they try instead? Do you want to have a go? Let's try that and see what happens. Okay, stop there. now let's try this and see what happens. So giving a real flexibility as you do simulations. And finally, disturbance. We want to allow the unexpected to happen. Sometimes maybe the simulated patient doesn't follow what their role is meant to be. And maybe as a facilitator, I say, oh, stop, stop, stop. You know, that's not what you're meant to say. But rather than stopping them, let them improvise, let them do something different. Disturbance happens naturally in everyday life. And so we want to allow the unexpected, even perhaps plan a scenario with an interruption, that something happens and the student has to learn how to deal with that. This is what happens in real life. And giving students the freedom to challenge. For us, if we're teachers, do we let our students challenge us and say, I don't agree with that? Why not? Let's look at it. Let's learn together and see what we can create. So really, complexity theory is a lens in which we can look at the consultation with the Calgary-Cambridge framework or other communication models, but to add in a bit more of thinking about how can this be like real life. And I think one of the things is we need to teach our students the tools that they need, the skills that they need. And we mustn't introduce complexity too early, because that will be confusing. But I think as students progress and know more what the tools are, let's have some fun experimenting, changing things, allowing for disturbance, allowing there to be a bit more complexity within our teaching and learning, so that students can really begin to see and feel how real life may be. Now, I was going to put you into breakout rooms, but that is not going to happen. But just to think about for yourselves, in your current teaching and learning, do you include complexity? And can you think about how to make communication skills teaching more like real life? And then also think about maybe some of the role plays that you might use, and think, actually, with this role play that I have, how can I bring in emergence, new things happening? How can I bring in some attunement, some awareness and picking up of cues? How can I bring in experimentation? How can I allow and enable disturbance? So we won't be doing group feedback because there's not time, and there's references that I can pass on to Dr. Salam. But just to say, communication is never simple and straightforward. We can give our students those skills to be able to communicate, but ultimately we want to teach our students how to be skilled communicators, not just having knowledge of communication skills. We want to teach them how to use those skills and how to use them in life, which is actually quite messy and unpredictable at times. So I hope you will be able to embrace complexity in the medical interview and maybe use those 4 factors or features of complexity theory when you're designing your scenarios for your students. Thank you very much.